We see it. It's the first thing that comes on the news. You know, helicopters hovering over, and they're showing the school. School's in lockdown. And you know, what do you see? You have parents coming. You have first responders coming. School lockdown. There's two types of school lockdowns. You have your partial lockdown and your full lockdown. All right, your partial lockdowns for schools are important. Partial lockdown, there is no threat against your facility. And this is what people need to understand, because I hear when they go through runs of lockdowns at schools, I'm hearing that, oh, we're in a partial lockdown. Oh, why are you in a partial lockdown? Somebody in the school hit the principal. Okay, well that's a different lockdown. That's a threat in the school. That's a threat to the school. A partial lockdown is a threat that is happening outside your facility that is not affecting your school directly. It's not a threat against your school directly, but something's going on, and whether the police have asked you to go to a partial lockdown or a school administrator has decided to put the school on a partial lockdown, that's what the partial lockdowns are for. Students and staff stay in their classrooms. They continue doing their work. Depending on the reason for the partial lockdown, maybe the police are looking for somebody that just robbed a store, or somebody that was seen with a gun. They might say, listen, the kids on this wing have to come out of their class because there's all glass on that side. Okay, but you're still in a partial lockdown. And you're in a partial lockdown and you're staying in your classrooms in case it goes from a partial lockdown to a full lockdown. But remember, a partial lockdown is a threat that's happening outside your building. Something is happening, the police are making you aware of it, or a school administrator has become aware of it, and you're going to continue normal operations. You're going to teach your kids, but you're not going to be going in or out of the school or in or out of the classrooms. Full lockdown is different. You have a threat inside your facility. You have a threat inside your school. Something serious is happening, and your classes have to go into a full lockdown. All right, we're inside our classrooms, doors are closed, blinds are pulled, either bags or paper or jackets are put over any glass, trying to block the view from anyone looking into the classroom. And kids must be quiet. You're going to silence all your electronic devices, and you're going to wait to hear for information. All right, full lockdowns are important. You need to know that if you're in a full lockdown, you're in a full lockdown until you're told you're no longer in a full lockdown. We did an intruder drill about 3 weeks ago, and we went into a full lockdown in a school in Queens. Everything was very good. I'm walking around with the principal, and you don't hear anything. Kids are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Staff is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And what happens? The bell goes off. Change of class. And what happens? Everybody came out. It was an eye-opener for me and for the principal, because I never experienced it. A lot of school systems have bell systems that are automated, that will go off every 41 minutes, or depending on the time of the length of the class. So if you're practicing these lockdowns, practice them when you know you're going to have a change in classes. All right, because this was a great experience for the kids to learn, and we were screaming at all the kids, get back in your class, get back in your classrooms. The drill's not over. You didn't hear someone come over and say the drill is over or the threat is over. Okay, so it's very important. That was a real eye-opener for all of us. So remember that. If you're in charge of training at your school, if you're in charge of doing those drills, do a drill during a class change or a minute or two before a class change. All right, and don't say anything. See what happens. It'd be a great experience for everyone to learn from it. The worst case scenario is an active shooter scenario. This is the one that nobody wants to ever experience. And there are some scenarios, and one of the other speakers will be going into this more into depth. But there's a lot of confusion. What do you do in an active shooter scenario? Answer from principals, or answer from security directors, or the person who's in charge of security. We go to lockdown. We go to lockdown. Okay, and what do you do? You're in lockdown. Is there any information being given? Well, possibly. If there is information that can be given, it's given over the PA system. Okay, that's good. And if that information is given where the shooter is, what are we doing? We're just staying in lockdown until the police arrive. Okay. So most of that's correct. But there's one thing that you want to do. All right, active shooter scenario, there are 3 choices to make. You're going to either evacuate, hide, which will be your lockdown, or take action. If you have an active shooter, if you have a gunman in your school, and you're able to give information to the rest of the school body that the threat, or if you have a code word, or whatever you might have, that the black briefcase is on the 2nd floor. All right, we have a parent, came in for a meeting, took out a gun, and is pissed off at the teacher for whatever reason, and now we got a gun inside the school. All right, information's given. We have a black briefcase, that's the code word, on the 2nd floor. So what should the rest of the school be doing? Are we just staying in lockdown? No. We want to evacuate. If we can evacuate, we want to get out of that school. Our 1st floor should be flying out the doors or flying out the windows. Our 3rd floor, 4th floor, depending on escape options, should be trying to get out if they can. All right, our 2nd floor, where the threat is, you're in lockdown. You're in lockdown, and it's important for school staff to know, administrators, teachers, custodians, everyone to know what the difference is on a lockdown. Because yes, you can be in a lockdown, and you could have people trying to escape from your school also, depending on where that threat is, if that information is given. So it's very, very important to understand that. You always want to try to evacuate first. If you can't, you hide, you go into a full lockdown. And if you can't, if you're in a full lockdown and you're the class that gets chosen by this intruder, what do? Well, as we saw in Sandy Hook and in Taft High School in California, staff took action. Some paid with their lives. The young man who came into the school with a gun in California gave over the gun to the staff member. Incredible bravery by that staff member. So you have to take action. You don't want to just lay there or hide if you know that an individual is coming in through your door. You've got to be ready to take action. What action you might be able to take? Well, if you're far in the classroom, like you're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be in the corner, away from the main door, away from glasses. If that person's coming through your door and you know they're coming through your door, you may have to make that decision, if you can, to come up to that door and be ready, to face this person, or at least slow them down. Grab that gun when they open the door, all right? But these are decisions you have to make, and it's not an easy decision. It definitely is not an easy decision to make, and hopefully, none of us will ever go through that. But you have to know your options. You have to have the knowledge so you can make decisions if something like this happens, and not go into a panic. Because if you go into a panic, your panic could possibly cost the lives of some children or other staff members. You get through the situation, you do the best you can. If all goes well, you go home, have a couple of beers, have some wine, and you relax for doing a good job. Lockdown options, and I'm wrapping up here. Lockdown options are important, but your staff has to know what you can do to lock down. Where are you locking down? Are you locking down in your classroom? Are you locking down in the boiler room? Do you have a lockdown room set up in the school? All of those are great, but you need all of those lockdown options, not just a lockdown room in the school, or not just a boiler room. All your doors should have the capability to lock. Yes, you have to follow fire code and building codes, so you have to be careful with that. Okay, but there are ways to make your doors with locking capability by putting hardware on the back of your doors, and in the event of an emergency, where you can't lock the inside of your door because it's currently fire and building code violation, that you'd be able to slide a bolt into the hardware that's already preset. Just an idea that you can look into and see if that works for you. Your escape options are just as important. Every teacher, every person that sits in an office in your school should know their escape options. They should be written down where you're going from the 3rd floor classroom, 306, a list of all their options, where they're heading to. If they're going to a fire escape, if they're going down staircase A, staircase B, if they're going to the roof, going onto an adjoining building. It's very, very important that these escape options are given to all your staff members, and that the staff members go over these escape options, because it's very, very important. We have schools that, especially here in the city, that you're up against other buildings. Okay, we can go to the roof, we can go onto another building, we can come down an adjoining stairwell of that building. It's important for us to go out, meet our neighbors, make sure we touch base with them and let them know if there's an emergency, this is what we plan to do. We're going to use your access system, we're going to come onto your roof, or we're going to come down your fire escape. All right, because in an emergency, you want to know where you're going. If you don't have a clue where you're going and the only thing you know is, well, the main entrance is 3 floors down, you know, say it on you. Teachers need to know this information, staff needs to know it. It's very, very important. Once you get out of your school, your safe house locations, where are we sending your kids? Where are your teachers going? They have to know where they're going. Every location here, school districts, you guys, there should be 2 safe house locations, whether it's a shopping center, parking lot of a mall, or maybe some neighbors down the road. But you have to have some plan to know where people are going. And everyone should know these safe house locations. So when you get your escape option and you're using that escape option and you're down on the street with your kids, where are you standing? Am I just standing by the roadway? Am I standing 50 feet from the front of the school? When I know there's a gunman inside, they have to have escape options and they have to have their safe house locations so they know exactly where to go if they get out of the school. Staff training, here it is, people. One of the most important aspects of making sure that your security procedures are in place. If you don't do staff training at least 3 times a year, they're not benefiting. And staff training has to be more than just sitting in the classroom. When we do assessments and we do staff training, we actually go through the physical movement of going through an escape option, doing a lockdown, so it becomes second nature to people. You have to do that. It's very important. Don't just hand out a flyer saying, hey, this is everything you got to do. Make sure you read it. It's not going to work. They have to do this on a regular basis, just like you do your fire drills, until they get to know it. And it's important. And in the event something does happen, you will see that your staff, from every level, from your teachers to your custodians, will be able to get out safely, lock down safely, evacuate safely. Very important. And the reason we do this is to make sure we have a safe and secure environment. Look at the pictures of these kids, and this is it. This is the reason why, you know, we do this and take the time out. You know, we become complacent, just like we all do, myself included, but we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can by implementing simple procedures, simple items that don't cost a lot of money. They're like, oh, how am I going to come up with all this? Except for bullet-resistant glass, but all these other layers, from your cameras to your access control system to your communication capabilities, these are important and they don't cost a lot to do if they're implemented properly. Okay, now everybody could have these, and if you don't implement them properly, then you don't have a good security system. And it's important to make sure that you do that and take the time out, you know, so that kids like these 4 kids here, you know, have a safe environment when they go to your school or to your facility. So with that, I'd like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Albert Timon. He is the CEO of Capap Academy, and they do training for our law enforcement agencies and also our private sector in anti-terrorism for both domestic and international.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. I think the issue itself and the subject that we're talking about is very important, not to miss this opportunity to learn as much as we can about it, because it's close to our hearts and it's close to you know, our children, and the entire society is a part of it. So we are a collective. We are a collective society of people that have something in common, and when things like that happen, like David mentioned, like in Newtown, Connecticut, the Sandy Hook massacre, we cannot be, you know, left behind anymore. And want to at least know that we're doing the max that we can in order to be educated at least about the subject, that it's so powerful on one side and on the other so devastating. Let me just introduce myself. I've been a member of the Israeli Defense Force for about 16 years. Spent most of my time not speaking, not by public speaking. I've been there on the ground. I've done a lot of things for my country, and I can tell you that it's not easy to stand here in a perspective and to lecture to others when you know that you've been and done things that are very hard to accomplish. So it's not easy to lecture and give solutions from the perspective of the person, even from the person that have been a part of those operations and apparatus. Now they're bringing the. There you go. I missed it. From a perspective of a person, again, that is coming with so-called experience, I can tell you that the worst or the hardest thing to accomplish is order in chaos. And when we're talking about situations like this, it's the worst case scenario. This is the worst threat to public schools or private schools or any school when we're talking about active shooter, okay? Just think about it for a second. You know, you're just sitting there minding your own business and somebody comes here and starts to shoot actively one after the other. Think about it for a second and take it into your mind. What emotions, what feelings, what takes over yourselves in that moment? That's horrible. That's nothing to be compared with anything else that we've known before. Acts of terrorism are happening, almost every day around the world, but we hear about them on the TV. We see them in different media ways, and it's far away from us. But slowly we start to understand that as a society we cannot stand anymore on the viewer side, and we have to take active part in actually securing our own societies, our own schools. We have to do that. Nobody else is going to replace us. There is no replacement for the human factor. There's no gadget or no technology that will actually replace you, administrators, school staff, custodians, anyone that has a say-so in the daily routine of our schools has a say-so in the security. It doesn't matter who you are, you will have to do the right thing when the moment calls for it. So let me just start by actually explaining what is an active shooter, because we hear that active shooter, active threat, there's a lot of names being called the lone wolf attack. A guy comes and in different countries it's called amok. In Germany it's called amok training. The guy is in an amok, and now he's taking his rage and he's actually entering a facility, a school, or a public building, you just name it, and he starts to shoot merciless. There's no distinction between small kids. There's no distinction who's he's just a target of an opportunity, and he's just, reflecting his rage against society, against whatever happened to him, and he's just, in that moment of massive killing or massacre. And those, little moments that we think about, are horrible, because it has to affect us. It has to trigger some kind of a response from us, not just to see there, to take another seminar, to take, an active part. And this is where,